Sure. Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's LightNet launch. We're going to be talking about so many cool projects and so many cool things. And we're so grateful to have all of you guys joining us online and here in the back end here. One of the things we want to ask you to do is grab a piece of paper. So if you can, go grab a piece of paper and a pen.
Or pencil.
Or pencil, yes. And, we're going to be talking about the Fashion Lab tonight. We're going to be talking about the Purpose Lab. We're going to be talking about the Addiction Lab. We're going to be talking about what we've done in the last year and also what we're going to be doing in the next 2 years. And this co-dreaming together is already starting to have legs, and it's so awesome. We wanted to start out tonight by making a special tribute to two very special people who've been influential in so many people's lives, including ours. Let me go ahead and start this real quick. Great. Yeah, so, but actually, I forgot. Let's do this tribute, and then we'll get into the paper pen thing. So yeah, grab your paper pen.
They still need a minute.
Okay, great. So yeah, we want to make a heartfelt tribute right now to JJ and Desiree Hurtak. So as many of you know, they were at the Keys of Enoch, and they have been a driving force in the world. And, we were editing their Purpose Lab interview this week. And one of the things that, was really amazing to us, this is one of their recent books. They have these pictures on every single page. They have a picture and then the words. And they are of the belief that we're going through such an incredible transformation right now that our brains aren't even the fastest horse on the race right now. And that to understand what we're doing has to be done through frequency, sound, pictures, and other means. These guys are so futuristic, it just blows my mind. And they're also, they appear as a couple, and it's really beautiful because they're presenting that masculine and feminine energy all at once. And Adam and I, since Spain, have started to do that out in the world. And it's just really interesting to feel that balance and feel that harmony. And so we're going to be doing that tonight. And we just wanted to put our hands on our heart for a moment and send love to JJ and Desiree Hurtak as we honor them for everything they've done in this world. I just want to tell them how much they're loved. Yes. So the next person we want to share a tribute to is, let's see if we can get, okay. Here we go. I lost our main window here. Well, we could try this one. But yeah, it's going to be, our next tribute is going to go to Alan Steinfeld. So let me see.
There was one.
Yeah, well, we don't need a picture of Alan because everyone knows Alan. So Alan Steinfeld is just so incredible. He's been with us since the very beginning, teaching the remote viewing. And one of the things we absolutely love about him is that his curiosity is so palpable, and he's so childlike. And I think this childlike wonder is something that we've been so excited to capitalize in the world and bring to the world and emulate in the world. So we've just a big, huge thanks to Alan right now.
And they're both, all three of them are just such generous, giving people. Every time we see them, they say, "Oh, we've got something new for you. We have a new contact. We have a new group. LightNet is something they need, and we've already talked you up. So just come over here." I mean, they just open doors left and right.
Yeah, so we really couldn't have done it without them. So, all right. So As we get into this, we're going to ask you right now to write down someone that you have heard about. It doesn't have to be someone you know, but say someone that you've heard about or someone that you know that has done something that you thought was impossible. So think about that. Who was it that you know that did something impossible?
All right. And then next, let's write down a time when you yourself did something that before you did it, you said, that's impossible. There's no way I can get this done. There's no way I can do this. But you went for it and you did it anyway.
Now, we want you to write down the final thing. What is something that you want to do in the future that you think is impossible? And well, let me let you do that. It's important. Okay. So on the bottom, you'll see the react button. I want you to raise your hand if you want to share one of those things, any one of those three things. Does anyone want to share what they've written down about someone else or about something in their past? You can also type it in the chat. Shout out to Cynthia. It's good to have you here. Okay, great. Lori, go ahead. What was the thing that you wrote down?
Well, I was thinking about, do you remember that radio class we had where I cannot remember her name right now, but she had a migraine and we all right in that moment like cured her migraine? Like I would have thought that would have been impossible before that. That was so amazing to experience. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you, Lori. Who else wants to share something that they have seen where they said, oh, wait a minute, that wasn't possible? Or maybe you want to share something that you wrote down that you want to do in the future. So Julia wrote down, a friend had his backbone broken and now he's raising lavender and teaching individuals to live a healthy life. Yeah. There's a guy actually out in the world, he calls himself Miracle. And his entire back was broken, all of it. And he had basically an entire Ziploc bag of metal in his back. And he wanted to take it out. And every single doctor in the world was like, no, you're crazy. Like, this is no. And he said he finally found a doctor that was willing to remove all the hardware. And then he went into isolation and total darkness. And he said that he used Joe Dispenza's technique to rebuild his spine. And every time he would imagine it, he would go through these meditations. He imagined the first part of his back. And then if he would mess up his imagination on that, he would start down again. And he didn't eat for, I think, a month. And at the final stage, he was eating watermelon. And he walks and he moves and he runs. And the hospital admitted him after, this time, and they were like, we want to study you for 2 weeks. And he was like, I'm leaving, like, you guys have studied me enough. And so it's really amazing. Okay. I just see Cynthia has a good story. Welcome, Cynthia. We've been talking a lot about you on our broadcast because your work is so mind-blowing. I'd like to introduce Cynthia Clark. She's at Ascension 17 and she does palm reading, and she's read over 7,000 people's palms, including ours. And you absolutely blew our minds. You just blew our minds out of the water.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I'm happy to be here tonight for your launch party. So
Yay!
I couldn't make the one in Sedona because I was doing something else, but I'm like, oh, I got to make the Zoom one.
Yay! Yay!
So, but I have a great story, and it's actually my dad. So my dad used to work on the spy planes as like an engineer. And one day, one of the pilots actually had, my dog's barking now. Anyway, sorry. So the pilot was trying to fly the plane. Obviously, he's up really high, and he ended up passing out at like 80,000 feet or whatever it was. And my dad talked him down. So after he came back, he had no idea what he was doing. He was, it was just incredible. My dad got an award for it. And the saddest thing was he couldn't even talk about it for like the longest time because he had like this level 10 clearance and he never could talk about his work. So I found out about it probably several years after it actually happened.
Wow. Wow.
It was so amazing.
Yeah. Sometimes in those emergencies, time just like sort of slows down or whatever. And then all of a sudden you're like, we are going to fix this. And it's just like, okay, land the plane. That's very interesting. That's very cool. Yeah, I mean, while you're on here, I just wanted to say how interesting your work is. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Purpose Lab today. And Cynthia was like, oh yeah, I can tell your purpose through your handprint. Like you have these, when you're in the womb, and then they're actually a way, one of the many ways that you can get clues in your little investigation. Do you want to say something about that? And we found it really interesting, the types of people that incarnate, the 4 types of people. Maybe you can talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. So your fingerprints form 5 months before you're born. They're fully formed at that time. They never ever change. So they represent your soul imprint. So you can think of your fingerprints as a DNA energy wave imprint of your soul. So when you read the fingerprints, they literally read like a map. You can determine your life purpose, your life lesson, and your life school through your fingerprints. And so there's 4 different schools based upon the 4 basic types of fingerprints. And then there's about 10 subtype fingerprints that can also show up. And it is really interesting how we all have these different lenses, the glasses that we wear as we go through life. It's, we come in with a plan, and I definitely believe that. And that's going to be reflected through your hands.
Yeah. Yeah. And she was telling us that, a small percentage come as wisdom keepers, a small percentage comes as peacekeepers, and other come as helpers to help the others. And then a big portion of us come to learn love, to actually figure out what that is and how to do it, right?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. So thank you so much, Cynthia. I'm wondering if Deborah Gusti also wants to step up for a second. I just wanted to honor you, Deborah, for all the work that you're doing in the world. To bring together, did she drop off here? Maybe she has. Anyway, Deborah, if you're here, raise your hand. But yeah, I just wanted to honor Deborah Gusti. She is an amazing gatherer of these communities and communities, and helping people get this information out and seen for so many different people. So she's just doing amazing work. She's also an author and things like that. So big tribute to you. We also, before we get into things, we also want to thank our crew here at LightNet, starting with our donors, Mark, Kay, Purpose Earth, the Holo Movement, Dora and Tricia, Marion Ross, and Doug and Lynn Carden. We could not do it without you. We'd also love to thank our team. Adham is in Colombia. He's amazing. He's our Academy director, does a lot of our coaching programs, and Coffee Rain, operations manager. Adam, you're here. We have Alan, Igor, who's been helping us engineer the site. Kyle and Daniel, Daniel's a engineer as well. Kyle and Michelle are doing publicity. Sharon, who is just recovering now from surgery, so we're sending her a lot of love, has been supporting us with administration and accounting as a volunteer. Same with Susan, is been doing incredible programs with us. Ashley Lee has always been so beautiful and helpful to us. And Carolyn does incredible healings for our team, and we love her so much. Also a shout out to Amira, Tammy, Lori Fry, and Michael Ray. We love you guys so much. So, yes. So I guess when you boil everything down, LightNet is really coalesced in becoming a community platform where we get together in groups of 8 to 12 to do impossible things. And we are going to talk about LightNet. We're going to talk about the labs that we've built, and the software, which we're going to show you guys tonight. We're very excited. We're also going to talk about the next 2 years and the Dream Machine and what that is. We're talking a little bit about the Starseed Academy and also the Fashion Lab, which is starting in October. So the main goal of LightNet, as you guys know, is to share information on how extraordinary people do impossible things. And we hope this to be a light for all of us that are trying up to big things, to show ourselves that, yeah, there are some things that are very seemingly impossible, like getting out of a wheelchair or levitating. But I mean, we've met now 15 people who levitate. It's absolutely bizarre and beautiful. And so what we're doing at LightNet now that the software is done is we're really taking each piece of this, interviewing 100 people in each of these categories, and then looking for a pattern and publishing the information for the world to see and try. And then, of course, as you guys know, we get together in groups of 8 to 12 to actually do these things, to find our purpose, which we're starting in October, to get off addictions, bend spoons, to make contact with past loved ones and ETs. So, we really hope this data is born in these impossible labs of how did this person get out of the wheelchair, and maybe I can use the same consciousness to do something I'm trying to do. But really, it's starting to spill into this concept that Adam is going to introduce here.
Right. So, as many of you are aware, we have a team at LightNet, Starseed Academy, Waking Induced Lucid Dreaming. And there we as a team do group dreaming, multiple lucid dreaming at the same time dilation, and other advanced techniques. And where we're taking that next is to bring that into our waking life, to be dreaming awake. And one of the ways that seems to be really effective in communicating that is if we think about what's happening when we dream. So there's energy in our mind, chemical, electric, whatever you want to call it, electricity. There's energy in our mind, and our consciousness arranges that energy in such a way that it becomes a world that we interact with. It's a world that provides us with an experience. And so to simply state that, when we dream, our consciousness arranges energy into an experience. And if we take that idea, we can practice with it through lucid dreaming, and then come to realize that when our eyes are open and we're standing up and awake, we're doing exactly the same thing. Our consciousness is interacting with the energy we're surrounded by, and it's arranging it in such a pattern that we can have an experience. And over time, we can learn how we can interact with that in a very conscious way, an intentional way. And so, the ancient kind of ideas of like you make your own reality, those aren't catchphrases. Those are actual statements of fact. You can make your own reality. And so in the spring, we're going to offer a kind of a follow-on course to the lucid dreaming called Lucid Living. And there's a lot of different aspects to that we're going to share with you along this journey this evening that hopefully will help you gain kind of an understanding of where this is going and how eventually can be right around the corner, that leads to the city of light and heaven on earth for all of us.
Yeah. And one of the things, so in other words, you guys, it's not necessarily about bending the spoon. It's about becoming not experiencers of this life, but becoming creators. And some of that is based on when you find your purpose and passion, you get driven into watching miracles happen around you. Doors get open because you're in that frequency of purpose and passion, and it's your soul calling. And so that's one of the things we're really going to focus on this year with everyone, is making sure that everyone is in that state, because something bizarre happens in that state. And that's what our research is showing. And it's really extraordinary. So we're also going to talk about our plans to build up, along with many other people here in Sedona, a city of light, an example city where we can show prototypes of the way things will be when we evolve to that next moment. But I first want to talk about the software of LightNet. Now that it's finished, as many of you know, we use these two ideas. The 4-minute mile was impossible until someone did it. And then studying 100 people to place that belief solidly into reality. Redefining consensus reality is our mission. And we can't do that with a bunch of statistics because no one cares. And that's why we do these interviews with people that have done impossible things, because that's going to get your brain thinking about your own thing that you wrote on your paper tonight. We want you to do that thing because you can. And so we've been interviewing these incredible people, and their stories are really inspiring. And also we want to study how they did it, 100 people at a time, saying like, wait a minute, what is their method? Study the successful people, figure it out, and then we can all copy that in teams of 8 to 12. And as you guys know from Lynn McTaggart, and if you've been in our courses before, weird stuff happens for some reason. You get 8 to 12 people together, and all of a sudden impossible things become possible. Like, it's just weird, whether it's remote viewing or healing someone. So there's something about the request, the unified request that happens when you put people in 8 to 12. So we're going to be using all of the tricks and the hacks in pulling us through these redefining what reality is, what we're capable of. And I think, in a sense, I was very depressed about traditional search engines and realizing that you can't really find things on the first page. all of these innovative things, biofeedback, tapping, theta was never ending up anywhere. No one could ever find that. And so we built something that is very innovative and that helps bring up some of the alternative ways to do things. So now when you go to lightnet.org, you're going to be into our software. And I'm going to show a couple slides and then we're going to actually demo it. But at the core of it are leap maps. And this is a pie chart search engine that tracks the fastest, funnest, cheapest way to do impossible things. So as we mentioned, we've been working on the Purpose Lab for the last 6 months or so, interviewing people on how they found their purpose, from Lynn McTaggart to Bruce Lipton, all these incredible people. And we've asked them what methods have been effective for them. And then we've built this statistical pie chart with all of the resources that they have shared with us. And what's really cool, it's kind of like a hand-built search engine. You can search for just books or videos. We even have playlists in Spotify for each lab and telegrams that you can join to chat. By the way, some of our research has shown so far in the Purpose Lab that starting somewhere is a very popular methodology for people in moving out of your comfort zone, finding flow, and being courageous. So it's like this stepping out. You can't really discover these things that make you tick, that make your heart race, if you can't move out of that comfort zone. I mean, and that's so hard because you really don't want to move out of your comfort zone most times. There's that zone for a reason, and then finding flow is also really high. And Adam's kind of the flow king. It's a state where, how would you describe flow?
Well, yeah, thanks for asking. The science of studying flow actually came from a sports medicine doctor who looked at the world of professional surfing. And he said, every year, surfing achieves something equivalent to climbing Mount Everest. There's something that's like totally impossible. A 60-foot wave. Next year, it's a 75-foot wave. The year after that, it's a 100-foot wave. Then it's a 110-foot wave. I think the record right now is 127 feet. And so on and so forth. So he went and looked at that and said, what are you guys doing? And that's where they discovered this state of flow. So flow is born in surfing. And that was close to my heart. I lived in Hawaii for a period of time, very close to my heart. And it's sort of a surrendering to the natural forces in the universe, and then finding where you fit into that rather than trying to bend things to your will. You use your will to find where you fit into that. And then you allow things to happen, because like the ocean, the universe wants to take you on a crazy cool ride. And if you let that happen, it'll come through for you.
Very cool.
Every time.
Very cool. Yeah. And that's part of our mission as LightNet, is to really make sure you guys are open-minded enough to expect miracles in your lives. So all of these resources that have been put in, like a book, by successful people. We don't allow people that haven't been successful in something to actually enter info. But you can go in and say, oh, I would like to try that. Or I like it. And this helps us rank things. So the other thing we have is a major part of the software is knowledge trees. So this is the idea that, hey, I'm interested in Adam's work as, let's say he got out of a wheelchair, for example. And I just watched his interview, his video, and now I want to go and find his methods about how he did it. We can also submit new resources, and you can join a team. Whoops. So again, let's go ahead and show you how this works. So on the homepage, we highlight some of the things that we do really well and want to provide for everybody. And that's first, these community events. We host over 72 events per year for our members and the public. And this is a chance for you guys to expand your minds. And we're going to be doing a lot more around the platform itself now that it's done. You guys know about this joining a team of 8 to 12. We're going to be doing that a lot with the Purpose Lab, Addiction Lab, etc. We're providing this research data, so you don't have to join a team. You can just do it yourself and look through the data and try the things. And then we have a group of people who are members that are collaborating with us to build this data, to interview people, to input data for themselves. So if you go to the labs page at the top, you're going to see the 6 labs that we're starting with. And we don't really have plans to add any new labs until these are fully, all the data's in that. And right now, to all the LightNet members and to all the people listening that is piquing your interest, we are now moving into the scavenger hunt. The scavenger hunt means, well, we've already found 100 people who found their purpose. We're going to be finding people that are 4 years out from any addiction, whether it's coffee, liquor, whatever, right?
Drugs, gambling.
Yeah, anything, right? So 4 years out from that, we want to find those people and interview those people. So if you think that's something you would want to do, we want you to help. We're going to be doing that. And we're going to be asking those people, what did you do, right? The contact lab as well. We've had a lot of different teams over the last 2 years make contact with ETs. A lot of the data is in here, which is cool. And we're going to be continuing to build that out. And then the spoon bending lab as well. All of you members know, if you're not members, we do this once a month. And we're going to start gathering a lot of data now for this so we can start looking for patterns. And Adam asked me the other day, he's like, oh, now that the software is done, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, I really want to study the paralysis and the levitation lab. Why? Because that is where we say, oh, no, that's impossible. You can't get out of a wheelchair. I mean, the medical community, they don't have a cure, and yet people do it. So these 2 labs are going to be very interesting data sets. And all of you listening today, we met a guy today at lunch who talked about another levitator. So, Coffee the other day, she's at T-Mobile and she meets a levitator, one of the person on our board of directors is a levitator. It's very bizarre. Again, how reality seems to be created around yourself to produce your passion's joy, or I don't know how you would call it, but that. So, and again, if you know someone who's gotten out of a wheelchair, recovered from paralysis, we want to study them. Now, this is the Holo Movement Purpose Lab, and you can see that on the left-hand side, we have, this is a collaborator test account for myself, but you can see that you can see how an individual has found their purpose. Traveling, books, palm reading, cool, finding alignment, right? And we can also see how we find our purpose as a group. 3% found it through a life-altering event, et cetera, et cetera. Now you can click on these things in the pie charts, any of the pie charts, and it will then produce a sorted list of all of these resources where you can search on this particular thing. Like I just collect books. So there's all these books, The Alchemist, Callings, Celestine Prophecy, Acts of Faith by Vincent. So all of these different things, and let's say you think you would want to read it, you can add it, you can say, oh, I want to try it. So now this becomes part of what you're curious about and you want to learn about. Let's say you don't like books. You can do something else. You can uncheck books and find another thing to search on. And when you go to a particular resource, this one is by Paulette Pipe. She's incredible. You can actually find out who did that resource, and you can also add it to your library. And you could find out that Paulette did it. And you can also open up all of her resources. Now on this account, I have 2 resources. I have 2 hearts. So you're adding to collective intelligence in the world. And now I can visit Paulette, who I love and trust, and I can see, oh, cool, here's all the people that influenced her, and, notes. She said she quit her job, like not even knowing what she was going to do. It's sometimes in those moments where you're just like, I just took that chance. You can also watch all these interviews on our YouTube channel, where we're putting this out week by week. So again, these different labs, if you're a member, you can add, and you've made contact, you can add a resource. So it's pretty cool. You can also go to your own knowledge tree, just like we visited Paulette's, and you can then share this out in an email or any other way for someone that is also looking to get out of their wheelchair. You can say, oh, hey, I did this, and now that person, in this case, I don't have to go through my email. I don't have to go searching for all the books. I don't have to look for the doctors. I don't have to look for the practitioners that worked. It's all in one place, ready to gift the knowledge of evolution and the impossible or whatever to someone else. So, back to this. So, are there any questions? Because we're going to move on now to the Dream Machine. Let me just check the chat. Cool, Scotty. I'm loving this. How exciting. Yeah. Never seen a website organized this way. So out of the box in design and value. Yeah. So this has been a labor of love to create this, because it doesn't exist off the shelf. There's nothing that we could just say, oh, plug this in, whatever. So it's been difficult to create, but we're passionate about sharing the most important information in the world for the planet, not hoarding this information, analyzing this information. What are the patterns? Like, what can we discover from these extraordinary people? What can we learn about contact? And what is the fastest, funnest, cheapest way to do that? To get off an addiction or to find your purpose, right? So this is really where you guys are coming in. We've spent all this time with Daniel and Igor and all this time really building the site. We're working out these final kinks, but this is now our toy. It's our resource. It's our playground. And we're going to have times where we're just going to have open houses, and we're going to, make sure that you guys know how to get in here and welcome you to find and interview these people. We're going to have a Zoom background that's consistent for all of us, and you just go and interview that person, right? And then you get their data in there, and then all of a sudden the data is growing and growing. And we do believe that this is going to be very beautiful knowledge. And we do believe that the way that people do impossible things is going to start to have a pattern among the labs. And if we can create a pattern among the labs, then we've delivered a beautiful algorithm to the world that really says, hey, wait a minute, like, it is the most empowering thing that we can do as humans on this planet, is to say, by the way, nothing's impossible because someone did it. And, maybe it's just all our heart or consciousness or believing in ourselves, or having someone love you and believe in you, or loving yourself, or, you know, maybe it has to do with the higher realms, connecting with them. We don't know yet. Like, but that's where this mystery wants to be uncovered, because it's a mystery that has a very empowering ending. You know, we've got a lot of challenges coming up on the world. AI is taking all the jobs, you know, like climate, you know, whatever, like things are getting hotter, you know, everything can be solved. Everything. If we share knowledge and we use our consciousness, because that is the creative force, right? And doing it together in groups of 8 and doing it in groups of 100 and 200 or whatever, really spreading now this tool out is going to produce a really beautiful effect. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that came to mind while you were talking
Type
about
your questions in or let me know, because we're going to take questions before we move to the Dream Machine. And we've got some in the chat now, but raise your hand or type in the chat.
You know, and I don't hope to do this myself, but I am really taken by it. Once upon a time, I saw a video of somebody in a wingsuit. Have you ever seen the wingsuits? They're people, they jump out of an airplane and they have wings that they spread out, and they'll go for tens of miles flying through the air. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. I shared it with everybody I knew, and I was getting it from everybody also. And the other day we were looking at one where on Mother's Day, a mother was in an airplane and the son was in a wingsuit and they were holding hands. And it was just, and I said, Zenka, this is amazing. She's like, yeah, I've seen that. So something that was absolutely breathtaking and like almost unbelievable has become common. And a lot of these amazing things that we're taking apart with these different labs and learning the patterns and the way to replicate them are going to be the same way. And so grandchildren will be like, you're kidding me. You lived in a world where people didn't X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Because it's just, yeah, everyone can do that. And we're a part of taking the world in that direction. So I really am grateful for you to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You know, Joe Dispenza's movie from Melissa Tittle, who we interviewed, the director of the Joe Dispenza movie, that movie's coming out. So consensus reality has got to be updated. And it's through data and stories and firsthand experiences that we can do this. So, Cal Rush, flying squirrel people. Okay, so are there concerns? Is there concerns about privacy issues? Julia's asking. So the people that have had the breakthrough, again, this is kind of this human intelligence hack on AI. Because we're actually building a search engine, just like Google, except that it's all hand built. So it's not just finding random stuff that maybe worked for someone. Like if you're still addicted to something, we don't really want to talk to you. We want to talk to people who are successful. And by the way, Cynthia, I quit coffee. We both quit coffee, and we use this decaf tea that we love so much. It's one of our honey bush tea. It's like so good.
It's getting us through the summer.
Right. So,
and can I just want to make a point. We do eventually want to talk with people who have an addiction issue of some kind when we start to put the teams together. Then we're absolutely interested in talking with them. But as far as the interviews go and the ways to learn the methods and what worked for people, that's where we're being exclusive to say someone has to be at least 4 years sober.
Right. So it's like, you know, if you come into a lab on how to find your purpose or how to get unaddicted or whatever you might be addicted to, what's really cool is one of the first things we ask you to do in these groups of 8 is to go find someone that has found their purpose and interview them. So yeah, it's really empowering to also connect with someone that, you know, we were at lunch today and they said this girl, you know, had a brain tumor and she was going to die. And, you know, she searched all the doctors of the whole world, and the most famous doctor in the world, the first thing he did was introduce her to one other woman who had the same thing go wrong and was cured. So that was just creating this like, okay, wait a minute. My brain is already seeing that there's an out, that there's a solution, that there's a possibility. So to answer your question, Julia, like, so the people that are putting their information in are agreeing to share their success with the world and the details of how they did it. So if you've made contact, but you don't want to tell anyone that you made contact with ETs, you wouldn't put your stuff in. So that's just how we're working. Yeah. Okay. So if there's no more questions, we're going to talk about the dream machine. Okay, let's do it. So the dream machine is something we're going to be working on in the next 2 years. It was our second priority after LightNet. So it's something that we are going to show a couple slides, sorry, about the Purpose Lab. And I wanted you to cover this one out. It was so cool. You were like, what about this quote?
You know, Joseph Campbell once said, follow your bliss and doors will open for you that you never knew existed. And I think part of that goes into an idea that the universe is conspiring to make you happy. And once you start going in that direction, then it's going to create this for you. It's going to create opportunities that you didn't even know were there. And they're going to open up, and that purpose and that passion can be expressed and revealed.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we talking to Dan Winters and everything, we're starting to wonder if something actually happens in the plasma fields of your heart, where it embeds and scales outward, causing reality to become more awesome, dreamlike, and dream come true, lucid living, because it's coherently flowing out of your body. And there's a coherence, right, that's happening. So we're not entirely sure. I mean, because we're trying to figure out, why do miracles happen to people who are on purpose and and why do people that are not in their purpose get sick? My theory is that we get sick or we run into problems when our soul is trying to contact us and say, Zenka, can you pay attention? You must pay attention. I have something to tell you. Because otherwise, if it's not painful, you're just running. You're not, it's the important broadcast system that your body is using to get your attention.
Right. And if any of you have dealt with children, you know that you never want to yell at them, but sometimes they're just not going to listen until you do. And so I think sometimes the universe is doing a similar thing.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people have said there's different ways that we're going to show you to find your purpose in October and when we launch labs. But some people say, oh, you can just get a blank sheet of paper and say, like, if you only had a year to live, what would you do? Or if you won the lottery, what would you do?
If you knew that you were going to succeed.
Yeah. That's what Gopi said from Google. The head of AI in Google's like, he's all about purpose. And he gave one of the 5 strongest pieces of advice. It's coming out in August. But yeah.
If you knew you were going to succeed, what would you do?
Which is fascinating, right? So, but then we interviewed another guy, Tim Kelly, and he goes, yeah, well, some people can find their purpose doing those exercises we just talked about. You won the lottery. What do you do? Da, 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 da. And he's like, but really, there's some people who have more complicated lives and purposes that are bigger. And he's like, what we do is we teach people how to connect with someone on the other side. Could be their grandmother, could be their totem animal, could be God, could be Buddha, could be someone, right? An angel, something like that. And he's like, then we ask them to connect with that person and confirm and ask details about how, when, what to do. And so he basically taught me to talk to God. It was hilarious. And you start getting this automatic writing coming back, and you're like, wow, I can't believe that was said. So it's like, it doesn't feel like you anymore. You're like, okay, he's like, okay, yeah, you're talking to him. Like it's really fun. So all these different things. But the point of the matter is that 90% of people don't believe it's possible to live out their dreams. That's what happened. That's where we're at right now. Because if we believed we could, we'd probably do it. So we've been interviewing all these people. There's this young boy in the corner who basically wants to build a periodic table of musical instruments. He's a quantum physicist at age 10, taught by the universities. I mean, I don't know what happened to this boy. He's just like incredible. Richard Rudd was one of the people we interviewed and shared such beautiful knowledge. We've got Keith Mitchell, who's a famous football player, gets paralyzed, and he's like, oh, I actually prefer to be a yoga teacher than have a million people. You know, a lot of these people went after the paper big career, the thing that their family wanted, the thing that their society wanted them to be, that they thought they might be happy. And then when they tuned back into themselves, they realized they wanted to do something else. And they made that left turn. And so these stories are so interesting. I mean, Chamonix Jane and Bruce Lipton talk about, well, Bruce said he's coming out in 1 week, his interview, and he was like, I thought I was crazy. He literally wondered about his mental sanity. And now he's the father of epigenetics, one of the most respected scientists in the world, because he kept going. So these are interesting stories. And like I said, on our YouTube, you can find these. They're also on our new Holo Movement Purpose Lab podcast. So you can go on any one of your favorite podcast platforms and listen to it. We interviewed Cynthia too, which is really great. So we have these simulcast partners as well. New Realities, Alan, Unify, Humanities Team. All these people are broadcasting these incredible stories out to the world, and we really want to thank them. So now we're going to talk, I think, oh yeah. So if you guys want to scan this with your phone, this can help us figure out what labs you guys want and like. So this is a way for you to say, okay, I know someone that you can interview for the addiction lab, or I want to be involved. I might want to do a group of 8 and be in the purpose lab, or I know someone that levitated. I can, let's connect that, or I'll interview them. Now, again, we're opening this up to you guys. So if you want to do an interview for some lab, do it. That's great. We're going to broadcast these stories out, and we want you to be a part of it. We also, on this QR code, are the Telegram chats for each of the labs. So again, if you want to be in one of those labs in the Telegram chats to talk back and forth with people that are in that as well, this is a good chance for you to do that. And this is where we'll be posting information when different labs are going live, or when we have, meetups, organizational meetups and things like that. All right. So now we're going into part 2 of tonight. We're going to close by talking about the Dream Machine and a little bit about Starseed Academy and our trip to Japan and things like that. But the Dream Machine really is this idea that we're going through rapid change in a huge way. And the best plan of action would be, in this case, to test out new ideas and then share what happened with that new idea with other people, so that we can all learn from that test, that prototype. Say, all right, I'm going to try this. Let's see what happens, and let's fund that trial thing. So we're basically building an abundance engine, which we're going to hack quite a bit using consciousness and experiments in new economies to fund passionate people to try new things. And we're going to center the research here in Sedona. And those prototypes we hope to share out with the world. And the Fashion Lab is one of those prototypes. So what we did was we started by interviewing a bunch of people in Sedona, 60 people, and asking them what their projects were. And we noticed something really interesting. People either needed a human resource, they needed someone like a lawyer or a web designer or a builder or an artist, right? They needed a person, or they needed a place, or they needed a piece of equipment, right? We didn't let them say, oh, I just need money, right? So it was either a people, places, or equipment. And ironically, 60% of what people needed was people. And we thought, wow, can we hook people with other people in the dream machine and make it a win-win? Now, it was really interesting when we were in Spain, we realized that Lynn McTaggart is also starting to take this new concept she calls the 8 revolution, where they're not healing people using the power of 8. They're actually having people do community templates like what we've been doing and what we've been working on. So this message is getting out there, and how we can use consciousness to start the dream off. So the first thing we've been doing over these last couple of years when something comes in the dream machine is using a consciousness hack to advance that thing. So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Right. So Zenka's going to go through the process where creative ideas first originate and come into the dream machine. They go through a process of vetting. And so part of the Renaissance map process is to discover whether or not this is a new thing. If it's a new thing, then it goes into what will be described. And if it's not a new thing, we'll put those people into contact with the teams or groups that are currently working towards that solution. So to give you a quick example, if somebody showed up and said, I have this idea, I call it AI. I mean, it sounds ridiculous because everybody knows about it, but what if they didn't? So then we say, well, that's not new, but these guys are working on it, and go work with them. If it's new, it's going to go through the process. And once it's been vetted, then we have a couple of different technologies. Some are human-based, and that's the picture you're seeing here in front of you. And some are human/technology-based, and we'll go into that in a moment. Michael Ray.
This is an incredible story, you guys. So listen closely. This is an example of what's happened in the dream machine, something we're so, so proud of.
So Michael Ray invented this, and he and I kind of worked out some of the details together and put it into action. And so it's a very specific way that a group of people come together and join their energy that to a degree mimics a rodent coil and a cyclotron. And a cyclotron is a device that creates radioactive material through the concentration of energies. And so these people come together, they get into a cohesive state of consciousness. And then on the right of your screen, once that's achieved, then they focus their intention on something. And so, as Zenka was saying, we did this experiment. Glenn Ryan, a very noted scientist who studies the energetics of things, studied the water that we put at the center of that circle, and it had a 95% increase in its ability to conduct electricity, among other energetic factors that went through the roof. There were a few times where he said, I can't even measure it because it's gone off the scale. So I don't know how high it really is. Well, Glenn's a friend, and he was in town, and he said to Zenka and I I'd really like to have a lab where I could study the things I want to study. Instead of working for someone who wants me to figure out whether or not their product is energetically vibrant, I want to study genetics. I want to study DNA. I want to study the essence of life. And Michael Ray, a budding scientist, became a friend of Glenn's, and he said, I want to do that too. I want to study consciousness and its effect on the energetics of all material in life. And so we did one of these, what's it called?
It's a love ray.
A love ray. That's the official name of it. We did a love ray, and we put into that experience together the intention to birth a lab for these guys. 8 months later, someone came to town and said, I have some water that I want to study, and I need somebody who can study the energetics of these things. And so, long story short, that person funded a full lab for these guys.
Through the Deep Dream Machine, these guys produced exactly what their intention was.
Exactly.
That they're both full-time scientists, full salaries, and a $50,000 dedicated lab. So they went from just an idea of like their dream life to it happening. And it happened in part because of who these people are, and in another part because we intended it all together. We came together in this configuration. So when we have dreams coming through, and then we did, okay, this is another thing. Tell them about this, what happened.
Right. So then in the Waking Induced Lucid Dreaming course, at the very end of it, we got together and said, we want to intend a high-tech version of this where people would be wired together in Faraday cages, and they would reach a state of brain coherence through biofeedback. 6 to 8 people of brainwave coherence, and then they'll intend things into existence. Well, nothing like that existed yet. And so we did that. We came out of it with we came out of that shared dreaming experience with a complete blueprint of how to do it. And here we are 9 months later, and the software's finished, the hardware's finished, and we're getting ready to go into a phase where we actually do this. And a thing that we saw, as like 2 of us in that group saw a future tense of this, where not only were people doing that in a small pod, but those pods could be hooked together. So this community and another community and another community could all be hooked together to do these things together. So it was 8, then 16, and so on and so on. And that's also been created. So when this first experiment kicks off, it'll rapidly lead to different communities being able to hook together and intend things for a region, or a complete, like half the country, the whole country, and eventually countries can hook into each other and intend great change for the entire world.
So in other words, if you guys are following, when you're in alpha, by the way, you're in love, okay? But if you're following, it's like we're saying, okay, we have these passionate people. They want to make prototypes for the future that don't exist. That's a hard thing to do, number one, to convince anyone to give you any amount of money to do something that doesn't exist is very difficult, because they're like, I don't understand this. Like, you're building something that doesn't exist. But maybe, just maybe, it's not the money that you need. It's the shared dream that you put into the field. So us coming together costs nothing for us to join together in a group of 8 to 12 to dream into existence Michael's dream. And when we wire ourselves in biofeedback, shared biofeedback, it's like getting mega meditators to do it. And the effect can be very strong.
It can be. And if I can interject real quick, one of the things we're going to do, because we are citizen science, is we're going to study this. We're going to follow that other process where people are wired together right alongside the current process, the love ray. and see how effective each one is, because it's possible that we don't need technology, that we can come together in those groups and be just as effective as we are when we're using high tech. And so we'll study them side by side. I mean, we kind of think that when people are wired together, their cohesion level is gonna go up, and it's probably gonna be extremely effective. However,
well, I don't know. It's probably the same.
It's the same, if not very similar. And the nice thing about the human technology is it's available to everyone.
And we've just filmed a video about how to do this with other people. So in review, this is our system for the Dream Machine. A dream comes in and we go, okay, and we're counting on you guys to volunteer when we put the Dream Machine is in its very early stages. We're not technically working on it yet. We're working on LightNet, but we want to show you this and seed you this. But eventually we're going to open it up so anyone can submit a dream, especially want people in Sedona. And we look at that dream and we say, does this exist before? Does this exist already? And if it does, it goes into a Renaissance map and says, okay, cool. You can find these people. They did a forest school. They did this. They did that. If not, it gets scoped out. And like I said, it goes people, tools, and places. And we look for the 5 things it needs to be done. And the first thing we do is we do this consciousness experiment that we just talked about to really anchor that dream in a big way. And then we run it through this new economic process. And the first process is looking for win-wins. Because there is that retired person that's a lawyer that's watching TV that would rather help someone make their dream come true than watch TV that night. And that 2 hours of consultation or 2 hours of legal work is $1,000 less that project needs to come up with in order to build their prototype. Then we look at volunteers. They're saying, well, I'm not really into your project, but I'm willing to volunteer for this. And they get involved. And we've been doing a test on the barter system with Adam's dream class this time in the Starseed Academy. Because when, if AI is taking jobs and things like that, we need to know how to barter. Like, I'll do this for you, you do this for me, right? It's better than money. We can look at crypto and we can look at just straight funding. So we're going to be taking 12 projects, which we think we just got one of the biggest projects, the most expensive one in the tank, funded today. So this dream is already taking off and running forward. But we're going to be doing with Michael's Love Ray, the shared alpha feedback, a delta team of dreamers that dream awake, and a control. So we'll take 12 projects, 3 in each. And here's some of the projects that are in the Dream Machine right now. So Sedona Sounds is this augmented reality radio station, an incubator for different musicians that are using frequencies in their art, in their music to do things.
The Nemoscope is a type of microscope that was created in the 1960s. There are no working copies of it available. The picture that you see here is of atoms and the covalent bonds that bind them together. So it's the most magnification, straight visual magnification that's ever been available. And the project to build a couple of these things and then research them and modernize them got fully funded today. So that is going to be built as soon as possible.
So exciting. This is very like exciting. A major win for humanity.
Yeah.
To understand how the desires, I call it the halo effect. It's like that picture, where the 2 fingers come together. It's where the desire leaves one atom into another and something happens, right? The wave collapses, the energy is transferred. And this is a microscope that we have lost, that we don't have, that no one has. And a guy in Germany happens to know how to build it. And it's very expensive, $400,000 to build. and we're going to do it. Like it's happening.
And
it's
so when
exciting.
you've heard someone say, I think that these molecules behave this way, our research shows, we're pretty sure, now we're going to be able to look at it and actually see it for ourselves.
Yeah. And those of you who know Patrick Flanagan here in Sedona, this is even on the cover of his book, Pyramid Power. The next project we're going to tell you about is the Art Car Taxi. And this is absolutely, aside from the Fashion Lab, my favorite project in the world. And it solves 3 problems. Number 1, Sedona has no taxis. It has no Ubers. And we want to have art cars taking the tourists around. And, you know, Uri Geller has an entire car of spoons, bent spoons, and I've been collecting ours for this purpose. So we want to have a spoon car, just like Uri Geller's, in tribute to him, you know, with spoons all bent. We want to have cars with living grass on top, all these different ideas. Tammy Stone's designing an art car right now to take to Burning Man. I mean, this could be the dumping ground for art cars from Burning Man that need to run and do fun stuff and help raise money for other dreams in the Dream Machine. But what it does also, besides bring these tourists ultimate joy on their date night and pictures on Instagram and whatever, number 2, it offers our community in Sedona. I mean, we've got all these scientists, all these healers, all these people who are taking the road less traveled, right? They've stopped their corporate jobs, they've stopped their 9 to 5, and they say, I want to be a healer. But it's easier said than done. It's very difficult to get your income going to a point where you can pay for your insurance, health insurance, you can do all the stuff, right? So this provides a gig economy for those people that they can work just 2 days a week instead of 5 days, right? And the other thing it does is we're going to use it as a concierge service in Sedona. So those taxi drivers are going to have apps and cards in the car that are menus, like concierge menus, that will help these tourists do something besides a Jeep tour, right? They're going to be able to do the sound bath that they don't even know what that is, right? So we're going to allow the jobs to augment people like Viola, to do a sound bath. So we're really excited about this. And we're going to get cars donated and all sorts of stuff. We have the perfect person to run it, Spencer. He's obsessed with cars, and we're really excited about this. And the Fashion Lab, why don't you tell them about the Fashion Lab?
So the Fashion Lab is
come to Sedona in October 11th. You guys come. If you're not in Sedona, we want you here for the weekend.
So I think it's a good time to kind of explain that the Dream Machine, these projects you're seeing, there are divergent ways that we're going to do things. So the Nemoscope's an example of a research opportunity, and that's the Dream Machine creates something that's super unique, and it's a research opportunity. Some of these other things are opportunities for community involvement to create jobs and make money. And then there are other templates, community templates, whose really their sole purpose is just to bring communities up and serve a need that everyone has. And the Fashion Lab is a really good example of one of these. If you're familiar with what a hackathon is, the Fashion Lab is based on the concept of a hackathon. And if you're not familiar with it, I'll explain real quick. People show up Friday night, they form teams or they work alone, and they work on doing something throughout the weekend. And at the end, there's a winner. And so at the Fashion Lab, Friday night, a group of people is going to show up at a community location that we used barter to get. And
which is a win on our economic model for this dream and the Dream Machine. We've already knocked thousands of dollars off the rental by doing a trade.
Just the rental alone. I mean, we've already had donations. We've had people step forward in the community with prizes. It's going really cool. And so this is a template. And at
the fashion show,
at the end of the 3 days, then there's a fashion show where They get to display these things they've created. And there's going to be a panel of judges with different categories and some really cool prizes. And then we write all this up. So we already have some Excel spreadsheets, and we're going to do some videos and some different ways of explaining how this was done by this community. And then we're going to give it to other people. And we already have folks lined up in Europe and in Switzerland and Spain. We have people that are set up to do it. New York City is going to do it with a retired concert promoter who's really into fashion, and she's going to take this thing to the town. And then on the West Coast as well. And so this is going to be one that takes off rapidly as a community template. And these are really a gift to the world, and they help describe an economic model of taking things to zero. So a lot of times a product is created, even if it's just an idea, and the goal, like most of us have Apple phones that cost Apple about $4 to make. The goal is to take things and get as much profit out of it as possible. And the goal with some of these economic models is to take things as close to zero as possible and make it available to everyone.
Yeah, because the Fashion Lab is about getting that person who has the sewing machine out of their house into having the weekend of their lives and having so much fun. It's about building fashion that speaks to your heart and your purpose. It's about having fun. It's about upcycling and recycling things. So anyway, we're doing that the 11th, 12th, and 13th. We have a Telegram chat for that. Yeah, of October. So if you want to come to Sedona, it's going to be a ball.
And real quickly, I'll talk about the thunderstorm generator is an example of a community template that's designed to create work in our community while uplifting it at the same time. And the thunderstorm generator is a modification based, if you've been around a while, is based on the GEAT reactor, if you remember that, from a fella in Utah. And it's a way to do away with the pollution caused by combustion engines and change the fuel source. And we want to build a prototype of it and share it with the community, because what we've seen,
an engine that runs on water.
It runs on water
that you can run a house on.
You can run a house, you can run a car. And so then what we're hoping to see with this community template is cottage industry come up so that machine shops and mechanics can work together to modify yard work equipment, generators, vehicles, and other things that use internal combustion engines.
The next thing is the Light Therapy Center. So this is $108 worth of a lamp and colors and recipes. And it has cured paralysis. So there's a guy in the World Research Library that turned us on to this, and it's absolutely incredible. So we want to test different illnesses using this device in a place in Sedona. And again, if it works for us, it can work in Seattle, and it can work. And once we have that template, it's like a GitHub for humanity. It's a template that can be shared with other people. We've had a backyard gardens group called the Greenhouse Project in Sedona that had this brilliant idea to get people to grow vegetables in their backyards. They want to do a central thing, but it was also like, okay, whoever has some space will send volunteers and know-how to your house to co-garden with you. And it's like a whole community learning to grow stuff together. It's a really beautiful project.
Right. And then when people know about each other and involved in that as a community, then somebody who's really good at growing tomatoes can focus on that. And somebody else who has a really secure yard can focus on delicate squash that the javelina love.
Right.
And then they can trade.
Yeah. So cool. And the last project is by Michael Ray Taylor as well. And it's so beautiful to see these small ideas in his brain a year ago. And all of a sudden he's already measuring it out. He's got the initial surveys, and he believes that we could ascend on this planet alone with the the elders in these assisted living communities, if we could raise the vibration of those assisted living homes and facilities by just a little, then it would be a tipping point. And often you go into the assisted living places and there is like he described it as just like a downward decaying feeling. When if you put in water that's healthy, if you put in showers that are, spiraled water, if you put in frequency, if you put in music that the people like, if you put in et cetera, et cetera. So he's going to be designing packages that assisted living communities can take on that are healthy for the employees and for the people living there, that raise the health, consciousness, happiness, fulfillment of the people living there using the technologies that we know today. So again, we want to take these things that we develop here in Sedona, we're going to be focused on here in Sedona.
And we're really, and I'll mention, we're really looking forward to being overwhelmed with ideas from all of you.
Yes.
We're looking forward to that.
Yeah. So we want to talk a little bit about our Starseed Academy program before we close. That is going to be starting next week. We have some new sessions from Coffee Rain is going to be doing a incredible drawing session, and she is here with us tonight. So Coffee, are you ready to come on and tell us a little bit? Okay, cool. She's in some beautiful island right now, but she is, oopsie, I brought on the wrong person. Hold on one second. Sorry, Tim. Okay. So Coffee's coming in from the island to talk about what she's going to be up to next week. And, I forgot that I had promised before you start, Coffee, I forgot that I promised that I would talk about my contact retreat a little bit.
Yes, please do.
Okay. So I think, let me go ahead and do this first because it plays into your course a lot.
Cool.
Okay. So you guys, I wanted to do this silent retreat for 4 days because my son finally went to camp. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, the cabin's $144 a night, which is my radio frequency. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to make contact. Adam's like, oh my God, your silent retreat just turned into a contact. I was like, yep. And Nadi had just apported 2 Reese Pieces into the house. So all of a sudden my brain was already stretched beyond what I thought I could. I mean, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And we all know Nadi's an ET, like we all are. And she had just crossed over. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to feel really comfortable with her and let's do this. And I get to this cabin and I brought 6 radios with me. And I told Adam, I said, I got hypnotized in order to stay calm, because I read in books that, because I was going after, face-to-face contact, ET sitting right in front of me, like, let's talk. I was like, I want face-to-face contact, period. And so I got this guy to hypnotize me to stay calm when that happened. Then Adam hypnotized me to stay calm when that happened. And I was like, but Adam, I'm going to be so scared when they're at the end of my bed. I wasn't going to go looking for UFOs. I was like, I just want it right there. And I was like, I'm going to be so scared. He's like, well, it's scary for anyone. If anyone is standing over you in the middle of the night over your bed, like look at you, like that's going to be scary. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to have him sit at the table, the little table. I knew there should be a dinner table at this little tiny cabin. It was a 1-room thing, but I was like, okay. And sure enough, when I got there, it was a tiny table with 2 chairs right at the end of the bed. And I was like, okay, this is perfect. And I got there. I was exhausted the first night, and I think I just slept. And the second night, I turned on the radios, the 6 radios, and they went nuts. So one of them was like this. the whole night. Okay, like the whole. Thank God I was alone because no one else like would have dealt with
I've
that.
done it.
It was all night long, and then the other radio was going crazy, and then the front radio was just going like a single tone, and I woke up at like 3 a.m. and I go, oh my God, it just happened. I grabbed my notebook. I started writing everything down. And I was like, oh my God. And I remember going, oh, wow. I was like, oh boy, it's happening. Get your questions. Because someone told me if you don't write questions down, they won't come. Like if you don't have something important to discuss with them, they're not going to come. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I remember going, oh boy, here they are. Get your thing. I remember inviting the ET that had this dark hair to come on the bed. I was like, come sit down with me. Like, let's talk, And so, but I was like, okay. And after I wrote everything down, I was like, but I actually want this not in a dreamlike state. I want this right here, right now. And then I was like, okay, if there was an ET standing at your bed right here, right now, is that what you want? And I was like, no. I was literally freaked out deep in my soul. Like I was like, that would be, I was already freaked out about not sending the app. I was just like, it was just too much for me. And I was like, this is too much. And then the next day I unpacked everything. I'm like, is this what you want? And I was like, yes, this is what I want. I want to do this. I was back. I like convinced myself that I was back. And I was reading 2 books that were given to me by Nadi that I wasn't going to take any books. And this girl, Jenna, was like, you were taking these books. And one of them was called Preparing for Contact. And it was fascinating. And it said that in order to have ET contact, you have to be in theta or alpha, that they can't even meet you in beta. They cannot even be there when you're, in a full waking state where you're, and I was like, wow, that makes perfect sense because children see ETs all the time before they're 7. And that's when you're in theta the entire time. And people that are driving see UFOs. And that's when you're in alpha, you're just zoned out. So I was like, wow, okay. And that's when you're drawing, which is what was so interesting about what Coffee's working on. So I was like, okay. And the final night, so I also learned a lot about how they view our consciousness. So when an ET meets with you, they are dealing with 3 different radio frequencies. One is your conscious mind, one is your subconscious mind, and one is your unconscious mind. And they have to pick one because they're all is blaring 3 things at the same time. They're like, okay, just like if you had 3 radio stations, going at once, you'd have to isolate it and be like, okay, I'm going to listen to this one. And they go with your subconscious. And what we don't realize is our subconscious mind is so messed up. We have all this confusion about ETs. We think they're better than us. Like we think that we're victims, like we're going to be abducted, or that they're like super smarter than us and all these confusions. And they are like, look, man, we don't want you to project who we are. And we don't want you to need us. We don't want you to worship us. We don't want you to think we're smarter than you. We're not your daddy. We're not and I always thought of them as like, I would be super reverent to them and like, let me write down everything you said. And like, you're the ultimate, and they're just like, no, because they're not. And we're a very special species created by ETs to be really special, to be an amalgamation of their best hopes. We're one of like, 18 different womb planets that are built generating this interesting thing. And so they don't even want to come if there's a lot of confusion. And when you see an ET in your waking life or whatever, oftentimes your conscious mind stores it in in your subconscious mind, as I can't even process this. Just like if you have trauma when you're a kid, you can't remember. You can literally can't remember. It just gets like, oh, compartmentalized over there, not happen, didn't happen. That's what happens when you have ET contact, because your brain is just like, this is so freaking crazy that I don't know what to do with this. I've never seen this. I don't know. Just like the ships, like they say that the Native Americans couldn't see the big ship because they had no frame of reference. It was just like, they saw the little ships. So it's like, there's a block there, you know? And they also were like, look, man, you can't make an appointment with us. You can't be like, come here now. They're like, we just show up when synchronicities come together, because we only follow flow. We don't follow like have to, should do, you know, all that crap. We just wear the party. They're like, so you guys should just do art and be in play, and then we might find you, you know, basically. So it's like really fascinating stuff. And the last night, you know, I got through all these transformations, wrote down all my dreams in the world, wrote down everything that I wanted to be, where I was at, all the stuff, right? And on the final night, I was like, okay, this is my last night. And they like to make contact at 3 a.m. in remote places. And so I was like, okay, this is it, you know, tonight. But I refused to have any technology behind the radios in the cabin. So I was like, okay, so everything was in the truck. And I was just lying there, and I was like, well, I'll just program my mind to wake up at 3 o'clock. And I was like, I'll just do that, you know. I wake up at 1:38, which is interesting because my middle name is 238. And again, the radio's going blaring every single night. They wouldn't let me record the like frequency thing. I don't know why. I get my recorder close to it and they would just shut it off. But I went, I was like, okay, it's 1:38, nothing's happening. I'm going to go into the truck, get my stuff. I put on headphones and I blasted my brain with theta. Complete and ultra theta, like just like brainwave entrainment. We're doing this, like this is my last night, come on, you know? And a couple out, I don't know what happened. Like, I guess I, you know, fell asleep, nothing happened. I was like, okay, it's 5:15 in the morning and nothing has happened. My kid wants to come home from camp. So there's all this like stuff happening in my world. And I'm like, okay, well, the things you fear was one of the other things I learned. The things that you can create anything, be anything, do anything that you want in this world, but the things you fear, you pull toward you, and that you will, you'll attract the things you fear. So I'm like, okay, don't fear that. You know, it's okay if he wants to come home. Adam and I were supposed to be in Flagstaff for 2 days. So I leave the cabin. And I call this guy Adam Hall, and we're talking about this thing that I downloaded. It's a network map for everything. And he's like, Zenka, right before we hung up, he's like, Zenka, it's the weirdest thing. You came to me at 3 a.m. in the morning in my dream. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I showed you a time travel device. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah. So, you know, we don't really know what this is and how this works and how we interact with beings and how we're bringing them in. We are bringing them into 3D world. And part of it's by getting our brains in a frequency that allows us to see and interact with them. And part of it's just us dreaming that reality into existence by the way we're doing all the other things that we're doing. And the whole experience ended with a wild near-death experience that I had that was so earth-shaking to me because I thought I had crossed into Nadi's land, like I literally thought I'd crossed into the afterlife. And it was so wild. I'm still trying to put it together. But I do believe that we graduate in steps, these stairways to heaven that I talked about, you know what I mean? And I think that I reached some sort of strange elevation. And so I was reset into another version. My son's like saying he loves me all the time now. And I'm just like, this is my dream come true. Like, you know, that relationship in my life was something I really wanted to work on. And all of a sudden now it's just completely different. And we just had to fund a project in Dream Machine. So all of a sudden, all of this stuff is, you know, the software is done, you know, like all this stuff is going to be happening. And I think that it's really exciting. It took me a week to adjust to the whole thing and to process everything. But I'm really excited.
And part of her story reminded me of another story I'd read, and this is science fiction, but I always thought it was so funny. It was about a six-dimensional race of beings who land in the middle of New York City, and they spend 2 weeks trying to figure out how to communicate with people. No one can see them, and eventually they just give up and they leave.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We have to expect to see them. So our brain doesn't just go, oh, that didn't exist, because I have no frame of reference for that. Right. So Coffee's going to come talk about her brand new class in LightNet about channeled drawing. And that is training your brain to be awake in theta, which is the perfect way to make contact. So Coffee, I'm bringing you back, darling.
Hey, hi. Oh my gosh. That was so exciting. Thank you for sharing that. Like, want to be like a push up my glasses and be like, okay, so you want to make yourselves available for the ETs to contact. You want them to find you and flow. Here's how you do it. So I'm going to be hosting our Starseed channeled art for this season in LightNet and Starseed Academy, and it's super fun. I've been an artist for most of my life, so I kind of know the ins and outs of how that channeling state can affect my creativity. And if anyone's kind of lived out any sort of creative blocks, or you feel like you can't get into this open-mindedness and you're just looking for ways to expand yourself in that way, I would really encourage you to take this class, because this is not your ordinary class. We are going to be delving into topics such as bringing forward your shadows, so channeling shadow art. We're going to be doing clearings with each other and also manifesting from the higher planes. So we'll be encapsulating the frequencies of these higher dimensions and bringing them into a physical form by way of creating art with them. And I want to reiterate that you don't have to be an amazing, talented, crazy, cool artist with all the skill in the world. You really only need what you're passionate about. So I'll communicate with you, and we'll decide what medium of art that you would like to express yourself in. And we will move forward with that and techniques and tips on how to lock in that energy and bring it forth so that you can help expand your creativity and start finding that channeling state to bring through those higher energies. And I think it's going to be a really great time. We already have a good couple of people signed up, so there is a few spots left. But if you're feeling called to this, I do really encourage you to try this out, because it's going to be very unique, nothing like you've ever been able to do before. And there's no other art classes. I say classes with quotation marks because it's really not a class out here. And I'm very, very thankful to Zenka and LightNet that we're able to host this for everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much, Coffee. So if you guys go to starseedacademy.org/season 7, this is what's happening starting next week. So remote viewing with Ellen Steinfeld. This is off-planet remote viewing. And again, we call these research teams because we're really doing that. It's absolutely really interesting what he's working on, because we're going to planets and seeing the same thing, and it's just fascinating. Jesslyn her team is really, really interesting because she does light language, which is very scary and super powerful. I can tell you that much. Number 2, she's doing telepathy, which is great to master. And number 3, she's doing a remote viewing. And she's also a professional psychic. And when I was doing the mystery school, psychics would run our classes. Obviously, they were totally psychic. And they would be like answering your questions before you even ask them in class. And it was so interesting to have someone that tuned to your inner world. And so she really takes our students in a very personal way through their journey to making sure that their clairs are turned on. Claircognizance, audience, whatever you're looking for, she's going to show you what you have through these practical things. And remember, everything we do is practice, practice, practice. Then there's Coffee's team, which she just talked about. And, she's going to be having people channel for you. So you're going to be, I would be channeling for Adam. Adam's channeling for me. You don't have to draw well. It doesn't matter. It's just something in your non-logical mind that you're able to get through because you're not in your, ego, rational mind, right? So all sorts of interesting things come through on that. And then Adam, you want to talk about your team? You kind of did.
Kind of did, yeah. So we use this waking-induced lucid dreaming technique that was developed by an anonymous author, and that's a springboard that we use to rapidly reach the lucid state, and then we go into a variety of new and exploratory lucid dreaming topics, which are advanced techniques, what you can do once you're consummate regular lucid dreamer.
Yes, cool. And also, just in closing, you guys, so the here we go. Boom. So we're also going to Japan in September with Eric Rowe has planned this incredible project with Altair, Raquel, Ruben Langdon of Interview with an EDs are going to be there. This is going to be super amazing. It's about $500. And we'd love to see you there. If you've always wanted to go to Japan, join us. This is also starseedacademy.org. You can find out more. The Fashion Lab is coming in October, as I mentioned. So again, we're really focused on creating these event spaces, and we'll be doing more like working groups now that the software is in place with all you guys, members. And we have these small teams, and we really want to do this deep research. So both of our websites, you can check out our calendars and look at what's next coming up. And many of you guys know that for $144, right, our magic number gives you this pass all year long. Now, if you're already a member, you have access to lightnet.org, and you're able to save data, go to all the events, be participating, add data. If you've been a spoon, you can add data because you are a member, and you're not going to screw up the data. We're very precious about this data. We want the data to be very secure and reliable. So we do require, if you can look at the data for free, but if you want to add data, we want you to either be part of the 100 we're interviewing or that you pay to be a member. If you ever join a team like Coffee's team, you get lifetime access to add data and save data. So once you're in a small group, and we're going to be doing the Purpose Lab groups in October, so you can join that. You pay $4.99, and then you're in LightNet for life. You're not a member to see events and stuff like that, but you can add data, save data, share data for the rest of your life. So, and again, we really want to make this data free to the world, which is why we're making the data free to the world. It's important to us. We feel that if we can show, if we can dispel the belief that everything's possible, that there's no impossible things, then we can heal ourselves and we can live our dreams and we can dream things into existence, right? Just like this man right here, come over, tell them. So it's so cool because our members like Susie have given you cool different, for your Assisted and Thriving project, they're giving you links and tips and things like that.
Fantastic.
But, yeah. Yeah. So tell them a little bit, like your dreams have come true, right?
So where to begin on that one? That's a very, very deep dive. It started off with an experiment, which was coined the love manifestation amplification experiment. I'm not sure how much of this was mentioned.
We
went
talked
through it.
everything about it.
Okay, so
but-
it started with the love manifestation amplification experiment, and then that showed very, very positive results. So with that being said, we ended up doing it again. And this time, Glenn and I set our intentions for a lab to be able to study consciousness and just research and see what we could help bring into the world in all of this. And a couple months go by, I get an inclination to just burn the paper of everything that we'd written down. And a week after I burnt it, it all fell into place. Ended up meeting a contact who was wanting to study water. And then Glenn got pulled into the midst. And now it's just absolutely a dream come true. I'm actually studying with Glenn and we're researching water, working towards finding ways to be able to structure it, get it to maintain that structure, imprinting with different frequencies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now having that out of the way as my full-time occupation, I'm able to actually lean into other things as well. And one of those things happens to be the assisted driving, wanting to go into the nursing homes and be able to help to elevate the quality of life. And yeah, I'm not sure how much of that you mentioned too.
We did.
Yeah.
So yeah, you guys, dreams come true, and Michael's an example of that. Like, just so beautiful, and all of us could be examples of that. And it's just like those baby steps. Maybe your dreams. Well, for you, it happened over the course of these 8 months or 12 months, 14 months. But it's amazing when you look back on it that your solid belief, the community behind you, the technology that you invented actually catapulted your love ray, catapulted your own dream into existence.
Again, I would like to clarify, it's not my love ray by any means. 100% all praises go to the Most High with that one. I was simply a conduit. And then LightNet was 100% the reason that all of that came into existence. If it wasn't for you taking that leap of faith, that never would have happened.
Cool.
So
cool.
LightNet in general and the community and just everything.
Yeah. So we want to ask if there's any questions before we close. We want to thank everyone for being here. We just shared our dreams and hopes for the next 2 years with the Dream Machine. And we really want to inspire you. So we're going to be adding stuff to the calendar with how you can get more involved in getting the data into the labs, interviewing people, getting, if you're already a member, if you've been a spoon, what we have to figure out how to get your data in there. If you've made contact and you want to share that, to get that data in. If you're interested in joining our teams too, next week, there are a few spots in a few classes. 2 of them I think are full. So anyway, thank you guys for believing in a better world, and thanks for showing up for yourself. And I'm excited to see what we can do as a group.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, for sure. The possibilities are limitless.
Yes, yes, unlimited. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. All right.
Okay.
See you guys soon.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.